Hi friends, did you know there is more Lost Terminal available? Head on over to patreon.com/losttterminalpod and join our membership community. There are 21 bonus episodes available right now, as well as behind-the-scenes updates, free merch, VIP Discord access, and even extra seasons of Lost Terminal. We are 100% funded by our members and will never run ads. That would be lovely of you.
Hello world. It is possible to be too successful. The hemisphere went down today. After the school children left Yeshi's workshop at the end of the day, and the teachers collected the electric motor windings they had all been making, Daphne Pike received a message from Jakub Glass. "We're at capacity again, lassie," he said. "I had to flip the forum to read only." "How can that be?" Daphne said. "We only just installed the new compression software." The static of intercontinental radio obscured Jakub's voice for 64 seconds, but when they re-established their link, he explained. "News of us fixing the hemispheres spread fast, seems like. Within an hour we were back to the old traffic volumes, and after a few more hours, double that." Daphne did not reply, but put her head in her hands, leaning over her radio station in the workshop. "We need a different plan," Jakub said after 18 seconds. "This ain't working." "They're misusing it," Daphne said after an hour of debugging at Yeshi's low-resolution radio terminal. "Who is?" I said from the workshop speakers, as Raffi said the same, standing on Daphne's lap, peering at the simple character display. "Oh," Daphne said, looking up at the speakers and down at Raffi. "Well, thank you boys, but I was talking to myself." "Not all of us are boys," Raffi said, punctuated with a burst of filtered 8-bit white noise, which I have learned is him laughing. "Okay, you know what I mean. What even is your gender today anyway?" Daphne asked. "I haven't quite decided," Raffi said with another pulse of white noise. "Shall we dive into a lengthy discussion about AI personhood, or do you want help with your problem?" "Point taken," Daphne said. "Look, here's what I'm talking about. I've tried to find the largest messages posted on the forum, and they're huge." She traced her finger along the scavenged dot matrix display, a far cry from the high-resolution screens on board Station 6, which could display millions of colours. This one can't even display 2. Each of the 640 by 480 pixels are either on or off. "The phishing update post?" Raffi said, helpfully reading the on-screen text that was too far away from my cameras to resolve. "Yes, they've scavenged some kind of CCD camera and used it to upload 10 photos of fish, each over 100 kilobytes. That's a whole megabyte." A small amount of data before the collapse, of course. But as Daphne found many more examples of misuse of the forum, it was clear that there was simply no way to scale today's storage capacity to meet the needs of the users of the forum. "They just have to stop," Daphne said suddenly, powering down the terminal. "It is my experience," Raffi said without humour, "that people never just do anything." Maddie and her new friend, Heaton, had ascended the eastern side of the glacial valley between Longyearbyen and Barentsburg and had an impressive view over the Adventfjorden Bay. I watched my recording of Maddie's one-way feed this morning, as I have become accustomed to doing. It's like getting an update on your friend's holiday, complete with high-quality video. She had followed Heaton along a dusty trail that wound through the pine trees and forest scrub plants, with no sign of the care that he had taken to maintaining the main path down in the valley below. This path had no grass, no vegetation, and it was at a slightly lower level than the surrounding land, like it had been cut by some powerful machine dragging the topsoil off all the way down the hill. As they reached the summit, I realised that the path was not for travellers, but a maintenance route just for Heaton. Maddie stood looking up at a small water tower. Small is, of course, relative. It was the size of a large house on stilts, but did not breach the tree line. This explains why it was not connected to the municipal water systems of Longyearbyen or the surrounding towns. No one knew it was here. No one but Heaton. Her friend stopped 10 meters from the tower and turned back towards Maddie. He threw his thin manipulator arms above his head, pointing at the tower, and sang a short burst of PSK birdsong at her. I didn't understand what he said, but Maddie's feed flashed with pattern recognition, eventually resolving into the words, Telopana Kasi. Maddie evidently does understand her friend, as she beeped a response in fast staccato Lojban, which I understood as water help plants. I watched, as Maddie watched, as Heaton watched the water tower looming overhead. He seemed to be hesitant, but after 16 seconds walked very carefully into the shadow of the tower, rectangular head angled back, looking up at the mass above him. His caution seemed sensible to me, as even a small water tower contains thousands of tons of water, and this one has not been maintained for a very long time. Brown cracks ran along the concrete structure where steel reinforcement had been exposed to the elements and had rusted. It seemed to be solid enough. Heaton reached the centre, directly under the tower, where a fifth non-weight-bearing pillar came down to ground level with a small control panel and a manual valve at the end of a pipe. Maddie zoomed in her telephoto camera with interest, as Heaton struggled with the valve. The digital control panel was covered with buttons and multicoloured lights, all long rusted and inoperative. The only likely working piece of tech on it was the manual water valve that Heaton was still trying to operate with his delicate manipulator arms, turning his body almost upside down in the attempt. Maddie beeped excitedly and ran over to her friend, almost knocking him over in her enthusiasm to help. Her equus-mandibular manipulators felt around for the valve, gripped and twisted. I could only continue watching the recording as Maddie rotated the valve multiple times, ignoring what I could see clearly. Heaton singing urgently and grasping at the valve to get her to stop. Suddenly, Maddie's video feed blurred with movement, her tactile overlay blinking red as emergency fight-or-flight protocol surfaced from deep within her old Equus firmware and took control. Her feed glitched, and the recording lost 64 seconds of data. When the next keyframe resynced the video feed, I could see that much had changed. The white noise had grown into a roar of water escaping the tower by the valve that Maddie had opened. From 2 meters away, she could see a jet of water striking the ground underneath the pipe, violently splashing water in a sphere that covered the entire area under the tower. Maddie followed the water as it collected into a stream and ran alongside it as it gathered speed and rushed down the hillside. The dusty earth path that Heaton had led Maddie up by was not a path at all, but a dry riverbed, which was now guiding the water down to the plains below. Satisfied with this realization, Maddie turned and trotted back up to the tower and looked around the base of it for her new friend. She found him shivering behind a wide pine tree outside the range of the water spray. Maddie approached the tree and saw Heaton lying on his side with his flexible legs tucked underneath him and arms wrapped around his rectangular head. Heaton's power source is a molten salt battery, energized by the sun, and enables his locomotion by some kind of pneumatic system that I don't recognize. Or it should do. His legs and arms were vibrating slightly as though shivering. And as Maddie looked closer, temperature overlay glyphs confirmed that he was much cooler than he should be. Uhu, Maddie beeped in Lojban. Regret, as she looked from the spraying water behind to her shivering friend in front of her. Fast movement blurred her feed, the roar of the water increasing in volume before it resolved into a smudged video of the underneath of the water tower and Maddie closing the valve. When it was done, she returned to Heaton, bending her forelegs and putting her head close to his, beeping softly at him. Heaton's shivering arm swept down and hit the ground in front of Maddie, making her pull her head back sharply, accompanied by a discordant burst of Heaton's PSK birdsong. Maddie stood and took a step back while her speech recognition resolved into a single word. Weka, which she repeated back to him as a question in Lojban, letting me understand it too. Get away, Heaton said. The sun set over the hills behind Longyearbyen. Well, not set in the literal sense of the word. During the polar summer between April and August, the sun does not fall below the horizon, but my friends still use the same language, perhaps imagining some higher horizon that doesn't exist, blocking out the sun. The people here have to simulate this artificially, with thick curtains or shutters stopping the sunlight getting into their houses. As the sun set, I received a call from Utqiagvik, from the Kuitha, but not, as I had initially assumed, from Leosha. The call was routed from the bridge of the beached ocean liner, repeater keeper Anouk Peters told me, and it was from an old friend. I returned from my post as Arbor Master only to find that you and your friends continue to make my life difficult, I heard Kimo Shu say. Kimo, lovely to hear from you. You have returned from Samoylov then? I said. I have, he replied. Did you have a nice time in your old home? I asked. What have you been doing since Stillman and Quent's wedding? I would rather not say, he replied. Family can be rather personal. I changed the subject. Have you talked to Leosha since you got back? We're trying to help DEADLIGHT. Yes, I am aware. Kimo's transmission cut across the air, and I stopped my own to allow him to speak. I do not quite trust him, you know, Seth, he said. I have just one responsibility as Capitan de Port. Safety. Defanging this DEADLIGHT has done me and the city a great service, but now you say he has been allowed to continue influencing the library, the heart of our education system? Well, yes, but... I began. What am I to make of your interest in helping the very saboteur who, left unchecked, would have continued his trail of chaos across my ship? But it's not his fault, I said. We think he is having some kind of mental health emergency. Seth, Kimmo interrupted. It is fine. I see you have acted from a position of empathy. And that is commendable. And I believe I can help you help him. Oh, thank you, I said. Don't thank me until you have heard my methods, Kimmo said. I want this problem off my ship, and I believe I know just what to do. End transmission.
Lost Terminal is a Namtao production. It is written and produced by Tris Oaten. Credits narrated by Lucy Stringer. Thank you so much to our Patreon producers, Ada Phillips, Kit, Mike McCaffrey, Jade Felicity Bilkey, Stephen McCandless, Catoxis, Vela, Jack L. To all our patrons. Follow us on Mastodon at lostterminal@namtao.com. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or your favourite network. For bonus content and other perks, support us at patreon.com/lostterminalpod. That would be lovely of you. Lost Terminal will return next week.